The way a match ends can be everything. You can watch a 5-star classic, but if the finish is off or controversial, it's going to change your whole perspective. That's the power the final point can have, and it's why the climax can often be the most important aspect. If it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, you won't remember the build. You're too mad your tongue now tastes like crap. This does happen in wrestling all the time though. On so many occasions, WWE and others have just pulled nonsense out of nowhere, leaving you confused and sad. And if you're confused and sad, something has gone wrong. I'm Simon from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most controversial wrestling match finishes ever. Number 10, the finger poke of doom. If you didn't live through WCW, I often envy you. While it did have some great moments, the awful ones probably don't balance those out. The very worst of these was when Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash went and destroyed whatever pro wrestling is. After all the hype and an apparent clash between two of WCW's biggest stars, it all came down to the main event of the evening for the world title. And then Hulk poked Big Kev took a dive, Hogan pinned him, and the two hugged in the ring to reform the NWO. This was terrible for so many reasons. First, it proved that's all WCW had. They constantly went back to the New World Order even though it was long past its prime, and the bait and switch finish only served to annoy fans. And on top of that, all of this completely undermined the integrity of the whole product. It sucked. Number 9, the Royal Rumble 2005. When John Cena and Batista both tumbled over the top rope at the end of the 2005 Royal Rumble, it looked perfect. The two talents had planned their dual elimination wonderfully, and they deserved all the credit in the world. Fortunately, it wasn't supposed to happen. The Animal was meant to be the outright winner, but he tripped, meaning he went careering out of the ring as well. It sent the whole show into turmoil. Trying to sort it out, and being properly annoyed, Vince McMahon bombarded down to ringside, but then the whole situation got even worse. McMahon pulled both his quads as he slid into the ring, meaning he had to sit there like a spoiled child, and then he restarted the match before Batista did what he was meant to do originally. After that, no one could remember what came before this. Number 8, the Danbury Fall. This was just dumb all round. Originally, New Jack and Vic Grimes were meant to fall from a balcony and through a bunch of tables, which is not smart. It got worse, however, because the two missed and smacked into the ground. The cold, hard ground. It was so bad, New Jack was blinded when Grimes fell on him and suffered brain damage. This isn't what wrestling is about, and you'd think that would have been enough. But it wasn't. Seeing money in the pair, XPW booked them in a rematch, and then yes, it did get worse. Feeling like they had to top what had come before, the two made their way up a giant scaffold, and then New Jack hurled Grimes 40 feet to the ring, and once again, he didn't go through the tables as planned. He just clipped them, and he dislocated his ankle on the way. These kind of stunts have no place. Number 7, Goldberg vs DDP. In terms of a match, Goldberg vs DDP was fine. Well, that is if you got to see it. Following the terrible Halloween Havoc 1998, which I do not recommend, the pay-per-view just faded to black long before it ended. That's right, paying customers had been cut off by the cable providers because WCW had forgotten to tell them the event was going to run long. So when the end time came, they just shut it off. It was the only thing people wanted to chat about afterwards until WCW decided to air the match for free on Nitro, subsequently pissing off those who had put cash down to see it the previous night. It was awful all round. Number 6, John Cena vs CM Punk. Blurring the lines between reality and fiction, seeing CM Punk run off with the WWE Championship following Money in the Bank 2011 was just fascinating. Had Punk actually let his contract run down and was now a free agent? Or was it just a giant work? As it turns out, it was a bit of both, because Punk had signed a contract that day, but it was so well put together no one knew for sure. There was genuine confusion surrounding his future, and the hometown support allowed Punk to feel like a hero among men. It really did seem like an individual had got one over the company, and while that wasn't the case, we all bought in, and the sight of Punk kissing Vince McMahon goodbye was all people could talk about when it was finished. Number 5, Brock Lesnar vs Randy Orton. At SummerSlam 2016, WWE decided they didn't want pro wrestling to be fake anymore and told Brock Lesnar to beat Randy Orton up for real. Right. Yeah. Great idea. Instructing the Beast to open up the Viper the hard way, Lesnar smashed his elbow repeatedly into Orton's head until blood flowed. It was brutal to watch, and unsurprisingly, Randy was concussed before all was said and done. Finishes like this are so rare it did make everyone stand up and take note, and was also all people could talk about afterwards. Was this right? Was this wrong? Good? Bad? No one knew, and they still don't. It was undoubtedly controversial. Number 4, Hulk Hogan vs Sting. The finish to Hogan vs Sting at Starrcade 97 was stupid. There's no other way to describe it. As the NWO started to dominate the WCW landscape, there was one man who watched them from afar and created a buzz throughout every arena: Sting. Transforming into the Crow character as opposed to the happy-go-lucky surfer dude, his presence on every show was electric as fans waited to see which direction he was going to go. And then he made it clear he was all WCW. Our hero had arrived, and surely he would be the man to vanquish the evil Hollywood Hogan. But that isn't what happened. Instead of doing what was right, Hogan took complete control of the match, making Sting look dumb, and then a Montreal Screwjob type finish, when Sting had his shoulders pinned after a fast count, took all the wind out of the feud's sails. Bret Hart himself came out to restart it, because he wasn't going to let this happen again, and then Sting won. And by that point, no one cared. It was even worse in hindsight, as in no way had a fast count happened, so it made it look like Hogan had been duped. Things were never the same again. Number 3, Hulk Hogan versus Jeff Jarrett. Well, what do you know? Hulk Hogan has appeared in this list 3 times. I wonder why. But yes, when the Hulkster went up against Jeff Jarrett at Bash at the Beach 2000, nonsense ensued, mostly because of Vince Russo's madness. Obsessed with worked shoots where he would try and make the fans believe what they were seeing was real, here he went so far, the wrestlers got confused too. The idea was to pretend that Hogan refused to do the job to Jarrett, killing kayfabe once and for all, and because of that, Jarrett was just going to lay down and be pinned, which he did, Hogan left, and the whole thing was weird. It got worse though, because Russo then went off script and laid into the Hulkster so badly that when Hulk found out, he sued WCW for defamation. The fans had no idea what was going on, and it was just terrible to watch anyway. An utter bust. Number 2, the original Screwjob. Before Montreal, Screwjobs were still going down, even as far back as the 25th of November 1985. Benefiting hugely from the relationship between rock and wrestling, Wendy Richter emerged as quite the star for the then WWF. Realizing this, Wendy felt like she was worth more than her $25 per show guarantee, and stalled on signing a new contract to get advice. Still working throughout this, Richter was put in a contest against the mysterious Spider Lady, something that should have raised alarm bells straight away. Beneath the mask of this stranger was Richter's genuine foe, the Fabulous Moolah, who small packaged her up for real and legitimately made the ref count to 3. This meant that Champ Wendy had lost her title, and she was never seen in the company again. Number 1, the Montreal Screwjob. I mean, what else, right? If you can think of a more controversial ending to a match than the ending of Bret Hart's first WWE run, well, you can't. It just doesn't exist. While instances like this have happened all over the pro wrestling landscape, as we've discussed, it had never happened on such a big scale or with such high-profile people. It caused such a fuss that people still talk about it today, and no one else remembers what happened at Survivor Series 97. It is utterly irrelevant, all because how it went off air. And that is pretty powerful.